The Great Train Robbery, England. The dark night of August 8, 1963, a Royal Mail train was traveling from Glasgow to London. Inside one of its coaches were bags filled with cash, an amount that today would be worth nearly £67 million, or approximately 800 Indian rupees crore. The train driver, Jack Mills, was speeding through the darkness of the night. Suddenly, at a railway crossing, a red signal light flashed. This was highly unusual because at that time and location, the signal turning red made no sense at all. Nevertheless, driver Jack Mills immediately applied the brakes and stopped the train in a deserted area. For a few moments, silence spread everywhere. But hidden behind that silence was a master plan, a plan that was about to become the biggest robbery of the century. This was the Great Train Robbery, in which the train itself was stolen. Welcome once again to ZM TV Videos. Viewers, this story sounds like something straight out of a movie, but in real life too, criminals carried out a suspense-filled operation and looted millions of pounds from Britain's government train, without firing a single bullet. Everything had begun months earlier, when a few well-known criminals in London sat together to plan a new operation. The mastermind of this plan was Bruce Reynolds. Along with his companions, he began preparing for an extraordinary robbery. He possessed secret information about Britain's National Postal Service, Royal Mail. This confidential information was provided by a senior security officer of Royal Mail, whose identity was never revealed. The information revealed that on the train traveling from Glasgow to London, there was a special coach known as the High Value Package, HVP carriage. On a particular day, a massive amount of money would be transported in it, and that was the coach they planned to rob. Bruce Reynolds and his partners were well-known criminals, but they had no experience in robbing trains. Therefore, they included another London-based gang in their plan, a gang that did have experience in train robberies. This notorious gang was known as the South Coast Raiders. Gradually, the team expanded, and more than 15 people became part of the plan. They were determined to rob a government train without firing a single shot. But this was not an ordinary robbery. It wasn't as simple as stopping a train and looting it. It required months of careful planning. On August 7, 1963, at 6:50 p.m., the train departed from Glasgow Central Station for London. It was scheduled to reach Euston Railway Station at 4 a.m. the next morning. The train consisted of 12 coaches, and 72 post office staff members were on board to sort mail during the journey. This train was specially operated only for parcels and postal deliveries to various cities. That is why it was designed to pass through multiple stations without stopping. Whenever the train passed a station, the local post office staff would hang mailbags on special elevated racks. As the train passed the platform, it would slow down slightly, and the staff sitting inside would catch those mailbags using a metal net. In the same way, the mailbags that had to be dropped at a particular station were unloaded onto the platform while the train was still moving. Through this process, mail was distributed to different stations without stopping the train. The coach in which the robbery was to take place was not yet attached to the train. That coach was safely parked at Nene Valley Railway Station. This coach was called the HVP High Value Packages carriage because it usually carried large amounts of cash that people used to send to other cities through money orders. In 1960, 3 years before this incident, the Post Office Investigation Branch, IB, had instructed that security alarm systems be installed in HVP coaches to improve their safety. In 1961, security alarm systems were installed in 3 HVP coaches, while the older coaches that did not have alarm systems were kept in reserve. But the day of the robbery was extremely crucial. On that day, the HVP coaches equipped with security alarms were out of service. Therefore, a reserve coach numbered M3024M was used, a coach that had no security system at all. This was a very important tip that the robbers received from an insider within Royal Mail. When the train coming from Glasgow reached Nene Valley Railway Station, railway staff attached the HVP coach as the second carriage right behind the engine. This was the first tip the robbers had received. But the second tip was even more important. Normally, HVP coaches carried around £300,000 in cash. But because the previous week had been a bank holiday weekend, on the day of the robbery the coach contained nearly £3 million in cash. And this was tip number 2. In other words, a coincidence that might happen once in many years had occurred that day. Not only was 12 times more money being transported, but at the same time, the HVP coach with the security alarm was also unavailable. But for the robbers, this was not a coincidence. They had been planning for this very day for several months. Eventually, the train, along with the HVP coach, departed from Nene Valley Station. Night had fully fallen, and the 58-year-old driver Jack Mills was speeding toward his destination. Meanwhile, the gang of robbers was already lying in wait among the bushes near the railway track. Their planning was absolutely perfect. At around 3 a.m. on August 8, 1963, one member of the gang began tampering with the Sears crossing signal. He covered the green light by placing a glove over it and used a battery to activate the red signal. After that, all of them hid and waited for the train. When the train reached Sears Crossing, the driver was shocked to see the red light because normally trains were never stopped at this crossing, especially not a Royal Mail train. Nevertheless, Jack Mills applied the brakes and stopped the train exactly at the signal. Suddenly, silence spread all around. At that moment, the assistant driver, also known as the second man, got down from the train to contact the signalman using the trackside telephone. When he picked up the phone, he realized that the line had been cut, which was also part of the robbers' plan. Just as the second man turned back toward the engine, the robbers emerged from the bushes and overpowered him. Some of the robbers climbed onto the engine from both sides and tried to overpower the driver as well. When Jack Mills resisted, one of the robbers struck him on the head with an iron rod, knocking him unconscious right on the driver's seat. They had arrived with complete planning. While all the chaos was happening inside the engine, some members of the gang detached the first two coaches behind the engine from the rest of the train. Their plan was to take the train itself away from that spot. But the question was, where? About 1 kilometer away from Sears Crossing was Bordago Bridge, and that was where the robbers' truck was waiting. They had also brought along a retired railway driver, whose job was to drive the train to Bordago Bridge. Up to this point, everything had gone exactly according to plan. But now the robbers faced their first major problem. The driver they had brought with them became frightened the moment he saw the controls of this new engine, because he had never operated this model before. Left with no choice, the robbers tried to revive Jack Mills and forced him to drive the train 1 kilometer forward. The engine and the two coaches started moving again and were finally stopped at Bordago Bridge 1 kilometer away. Meanwhile, the staff inside the remaining coaches left behind had no idea why the train had stopped. After reaching Bordago Bridge, the robbers broke open the door of the HVP carriage and entered inside. They inflicted moderate injuries on the 5 staff members, tied them face down with ropes, and began their operation. Inside the HVP coach were 128 bags filled with cash. The money consisted of £1 notes, £5 notes, and 10 shilling notes. The total weight of the cash was approximately 2.5 tons. The train was standing on the bridge, and a truck was parked on the road below. According to their plan, they had only 15 minutes. So they formed a human chain and one by one loaded 120 out of the 128 cash bags into the truck. The remaining 8 bags were left behind due to shortage of time. Their plan had worked almost perfectly. However, in the end, they made one mistake. A mistake that later became the key reason for their arrest. Before leaving, one robber warned the tied-up staff inside the HVP coach, "Do not try to get up for 30 minutes, or you will be killed." The robbers used an Austin Lodestar truck to transport all the cash. They also had 2 Land Rovers, both fitted with the same number plate, BMG 757, to confuse witnesses. After the robbery, all of them fled the scene. After about 45 minutes of driving, at around 4:30 a.m., they reached their hideout, located nearly 43 kilometers away, near a village called Oakley. During the journey, they were listening to police communications on VHF radio, which proved extremely helpful to them. At the very moment they reached their hideout, the police had also become aware of the robbery. But for the time being, the robbers were extremely happy. They celebrated heavily at the hideout. They even played Monopoly using real banknotes. However, their happiness lasted only a few minutes. Soon, through the radio, they learned that the police were searching for them within a 50-kilometer radius. The police were searching within a 50-kilometer radius. The idea of the 50-kilometer radius came from the statement of the staff member whom the robbers had warned not to move for 30 minutes before fleeing. Because of this, the police clearly understood that within half an hour, the robbers could not have gone beyond a 50-kilometer area. Hearing this on the radio, the robbers panicked. Their original plan was to leave the hideout on Sunday, but they immediately shifted the plan to Friday. On Thursday, they divided all the money among themselves. The total stolen amount was approximately £2.5 million. According to some reports, each member received around £150,000, which was an enormous amount at that time. In today's value, it would equal nearly £3.9 million per person. The remaining money was distributed among helpers who had played smaller roles. Before Friday, they carefully wiped all fingerprints from everything inside the hideout. They assigned one man the duty to burn down the hideout after everyone left, so that the police would find no evidence. That man took the money, but instead of burning the hideout, he escaped without doing it. Meanwhile, police were searching throughout the entire Buckingham area. Helicopters were circling above the city. Police vehicles were racing through the streets, and the national media had created massive coverage of the robbery. Police also announced a £10,000 reward for anyone who provided useful information. At that point, a man living near the hideout came forward and informed police that on the morning of August 8th, there had been unusual activity in that area. Based on suspicion, police immediately raided the hideout. It was a leather-slayed farmhouse, which the robbers had rented 3 months earlier. Inside, police found a large amount of evidence connected to the robbery, including empty cash bags, mail parcels, and a truck that had been hastily painted yellow. The robbers had cleaned most fingerprints from the place. However, fingerprints were found on the Monopoly board they had played with using real money. Those fingerprints became a major breakthrough in the case. Because almost all of them already had criminal records, the fingerprints matched easily with police and Scotland Yard databases. The real criminals were finally identified. Within just a few days, police arrested 14 out of the 16 robbers. Only 2 managed to escape. One was the replacement train driver, whose real identity was never discovered. The other was the senior Royal Mail security officer whose inside information had made the entire robbery possible. To this day, no one knows who that officer was, because he never revealed his real face or his name. The court declared this crime the biggest robbery of the century, and sentenced nearly all members of the gang to 30 years in prison. After this robbery, Bordigo Bridge became famously known as Train Robbers Bridge, and this remains its unofficial name even today. Train driver Jack Mills, aged 58, was never able to return to his job due to the severe head injury. 7 years later, he passed away due to trauma and stress. We hope you will like and share this USA Reality Channel video. Please like, share, and subscribe to my channel, USA Reality Channel. Thank you very much for your love and supportive comments. We will meet again in the next amazing video.